Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Big Rockpool Challenge information session. My name is Ben Holt. I'm the CEO of the Rockpool Project, and I'm going to talk to you today about our species rarity point system. So what I'm going to go through today is, first of all, I'm going to be talking about our Big Rockpool Challenge project, for those of you who are not familiar with it. Then I'm going to explain about our BioBlitz battles, which are the activities that we do as part of the Big Rockpool Challenge. Then we're going to introduce iNaturalist, which is the system that we use to record the wildlife data on these BioBlitz battles. And then finally, we're going to get into the main event for the talk, which is the Rarity scoring system. And first of all, looking at how we do it right now, and looking to revise that, so we last did it a year ago, but then also looking at some new ideas of how we could change how we make these points going forward. So first of all, the Big Rockpool Challenge, for those of you who've not been involved with it so far, why not? We have 3 monthly events being run by our fantastic volunteers throughout the country now. We've got 9 hubs around our coastline. Go to our website and check out where your nearest one is and when the next event is. They are completely community-driven events, so they're run by volunteers, and their goal is to both celebrate and also learn about and protect our marine biodiversity, which we have in these fantastic rock pools around the country. We couldn't do it without the fantastic support that we get from the Scottish Power Foundation and also the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And the project is run by ourselves in partnership with the Marine Biological Association. What we do on these monthly events are called BioBlitz battles. Okay, so a BioBlitz, if you've never been involved with a BioBlitz before, is usually a community data collection event, wildlife data collection, and it's usually a challenge for everybody to collectively record as many species as they can within a set period of time. So we've extended this concept a little bit to create what we call the BioBlitz battle. And a BioBlitz battle is a fun team competition. Also, you can compete as an individual to find not just the most species within a set period of time, but also the best species, and in terms of how rare those species are. And we do it in our rock pools for 90 minutes. Now, in order to get points for finding a species, you need to do more than just see it. You also need to record it. And to do this, we use the world's favourite biodiversity recording system, iNaturalist. Now, iNaturalist is great for a number of reasons, and it's ideal for what we do in the Big Rockpool Challenge. So first of all, it has a user-friendly app available on Android and iPhone, which is really nice for recording wildlife, and it also helps people identify what they've found using artificial intelligence. And over the years that we've been using it, that's got better and better, particularly for marine species. It wasn't brilliant to start with, but now I would say it definitely is brilliant and very accurate. But that's not the be-all and end-all when it comes to identifying what people have found. The iNaturalist also has a community verification system. So all the records which go onto iNaturalist will be checked out by the iNaturalist community, and people will either agree with what somebody said the species is, or they will correct it. And we actually do that as a matter of course after all of our events. Our volunteers which run the events then have a look at the records and verify and correct them. So that really ensures the quality of the data and also prevents any people getting scores for things which aren't really there. So it's helpful for the game as well. The last thing, and there are many things, but the last thing that's particularly useful for us is that the data that is collected on iNaturalist is shared instantly online, and we can actually get hold of that data as soon as somebody's uploaded it to make sure that we can run our BioBlitz battles. To do that, we have our own app, which we call a BioBlitz Battle app. And what this does is it takes the records that people have collected on iNaturalist at a particular event, and then it gives each record a score based on how rare the species is that they've recorded. Okay, people log into the BioBlitz app using their iNaturalist account, which is very important because then we know exactly who it is that's collecting the data, and we can contact them to follow up and tell them who won the competitions. And we can download all the data from iNaturalist at any time that we need to. And you can see on this screenshot on the right hand side here, this is a screenshot from a particular event, the individual league, and this is a live league table. It changes all the time, even after the event is finished. As people verify scores, verify records, it changes the scores, and our app instantly updates with that. And in order to do that, once it's downloaded the data from iNaturalist, it has to cross-reference it with our rarity point system. So every single species has got a score from 1 to 10, and it will cross-reference what the iNaturalist data says in terms of the species and allocate it a score from our rarity score system. So how did we come up with that rarity point system? So we first did it in 2023, and the way that we did it is we update it annually. Then the way that we did it is based on the number of UK iNaturalist records for each species. So at the moment, there are 24,000 species recorded in the UK on iNaturalist, and we've given a score for every single one of them. And we use that in our BioBlitz battles. The scores range from 1, which are for all the most common species, all the way through to 10, which are the rarest species. And when we're doing that, it's great. iNaturalist can tell us exactly how many records within the UK there are for each species. So, for example, these two species here are the most commonly recorded species in the UK on iNaturalist. They are the harlequin ladybird on the left there, and then the mallard on the right. So over 31,000 records for the ladybird, and 23,500 records for the mallard. And you might think that a lot of species have got a lot of records based on these particular examples, but that's not the case. Most species don't have a lot of records, and is actually quite rare to be common if you're a species. So these two are quite rare examples. And on the flip side, it's very common to be rare. And you can have a look at that. If we plot out how many records each species has in the UK on iNaturalist using a bar chart, and this particular bar chart that I put together, it actually shows you that nearly all of the species in the UK on iNaturalist have fewer than 5,000 records. There's only a very small number that are above 5,000, and that really doesn't even tell the whole story. I can tell you that a quarter of all the species, 25%, only have 1 record in the UK on iNaturalist, and 50% have 5 or fewer records. And so, as I said, it's very common to be rare, but rare to be common, and that's a very well-known sort of pattern that you can find throughout nature, throughout the world. It has implications when it comes to how we allocate all the species scores, because if we weren't careful, we would give like the vast majority of the species the maximum points for rarity, because most of them are quite rare. And so what we did when we set the cutoff points for the different values from 1 to 10, you can see the cutoff points on the bar chart that we've got here, and written in white. On the over there, hopefully you can see that on the tops of the bars. So the top scoring species score 10 points, and that's only for species that have a single record in the UK on iNaturalist. And you can see that particular score, there's way more species in that particular category than there are for all the others, but there's not really much what you can do about that, because those are the rarest species. And as we go up, so if you've got 2 records, you get 9. If you've got 3 records, you get 8 points, so on and so forth. Once you're starting to get to the more common species, then the jumps move up by more. If you've got over 357 records at the moment on iNaturalist, and this is as of the end of 2024, then we'll just get 1 point. So that's the lowest score that you can get. Every single species that you record on our BioBlitz battles will give you at least 1 point, and so that's the category for the most common species. So there are some potential criticisms of the system. It's a fairly simple system. Some of them we're going to look at today. So it's not a marine-focused system. It covers the records that have been found throughout the UK, including the inland ones. Some people think it would make much more sense for it to be focused on rock pool records, but that's not necessarily so easy to do. We've not been able to do it so far, but we are having a look at it today. It's also for species level records only. So a certain number of records aren't recorded to species level, so they could just be recorded as a crab, but not what species of crab that is. And at the moment, we don't actually have a score if it's just a crab. So those just get no score at all. And it's purely focused on iNaturalist data. And that's not something that we're looking at the moment, but it is something that we're speaking to other people about. So there's a lot of biodiversity in the UK outside of iNaturalist. iNaturalist is very popular at the moment and has been for the last 5-10 years or so. But we've got biodiversity data going back 150 years. The National Biodiversity Network is a great place for accessing that data. So we'd probably like to bring that information in to make our rarity scores more accurate of the real situation in the future, but not something we're looking at this year. So what are we looking at this year? We've got 3 options. So first of all, version 1.2 is a simple revision of what we've done the 2 previous years. And so it's just updating those scores based on including the records that have been collected since this time last year. Version 2.0 is a new way of doing it, and it's only looking at marine focused records. In fact, to be more specific, at coastal records, and I'll explain how we can do that now. And then finally, version 2.1 is looking at including all taxonomic groups, so you don't have to have it recorded to species level anymore. So that is now an option going forward. So I'll go through each of those quickly. So version 2.1, simple revision of what we've got. Let's have a look at how that looks. So this is just an updated version of the bar chart that I showed you before. And I think that it's really doesn't change things a great deal. The biggest change when you look at this plot is that especially the more common end, so if you look at the lower scores, which a lot of the species that we record will be, because they are the more common species, the cut-off points have gone up a lot. Okay, so previously you had to, if you scored over 357 records, if you had that many records or more, then you would get 1 point. Now it's species that have got over 614 records or more, and this is just a reflection on how much data has been recorded in the UK on iNaturalist over the last year, and it's a heck of a lot. So, as I said, it hasn't made too much of a difference other than that. There are some examples of species that have changed quite a lot. A lot of them have actually decreased in their rarity score. So here's one example, not a species I'm familiar with personally, I must admit. Little green sedge, Carax odieri, I will venture pronunciation of. So this was a 10-pointer. In our current system, and that's decreased to 3 points now. And you can see in the records column of the table here, I only had 1 record this time last year, and now it's got 80 records. From what I can tell, the reason behind that is there's been some kind of clarification of the taxonomy of the species, and some of the records have been reclassified as this particular species. So it's not actually necessarily new records, but it's records that have been newly classified as this species. The go-to place to see how the rarity points have been affected is the rainbow sea slug, isn't it? The iconic species for us at the Rockpool Project. Our fantastic farmer volunteer Vicky Barlow found the first ever records of the rainbow sea slug in a rock pool in the UK back in 2023, and currently, it scores 8 points on our rarity score system because last time we did this, it had 3 records on iNaturalist in UK. You can see that a lot more have been collected since then. So over the last year, and quite a few of these have actually been recorded by us at the Rockpool Project. We've got 28 records, and then so that's decreased the value for this one down to 4. So it's becoming a much more common species than it was before. Thanks. Sorry, no, I've got a little snippet from the fuss that was made when this was originally kicked off. The record and biggest pictures went viral around the country, so extremely rare it was just 2 years ago, and now we've got it down as one of the more common species that we find. So that's a simple revision. Next thing to look at is the marine-focused version. And to do this, we've got to exclude all of the records that are found inland. And we can do this now because back in May, we did our national BioBlitz on iNaturalist. And in order to do that, we just encourage people to go rock crawling and find stuff on their local coastline. But we didn't want people to record stuff on iNaturalist elsewhere and it be included in the project. So we made these coastal maps around the UK, uploaded them to iNaturalist, and now that we've done that, it allows us to easily extract the numbers that we need for the species records in these particular regions. So that's what we do. Instead of using the whole of the UK, we just use these maps. The overall shape of the spread of the records is pretty similar again. As before, it's very common to be rare, and a lot of the species that are discovered have only been recorded once or less than 5 times. So that's still the case, but the actual total number of records is far fewer, and you would expect that because this is just a subset of the overall UK records. So as of now, there's just under 7 million records on iNaturalist in the UK, but only just over 600,000 in these coastal regions. So just generally speaking, the numbers that you see for the cut-off points are lower for that reason. So again, there are some examples of species that have changed quite a lot. And in this case, it's always species that do tend to be much more common in marine areas than they do inland. So it's not really a surprise that a crab should become should be a species that's a faller, that's more common in this version than in the previous version. It scores 3 points in the UK-based version, but only 1 point out of 10 in the coastal version. And you can see how the percentage of records are different. So it's sort of double the percentage of records in the coastal version. And on the flip side, you've got this very terrestrial species of bats, so Eurasian serotine, which has, I believe, just got 1 record in the coastal data set. So it gets 10 points out of 10 for that. But in the UK, it's been recorded quite a lot. So inland, it's been recorded quite a lot. So it only gets 1 out of 10. So quite an extreme difference. There are actually some more extreme cases, just under 250 of them, where you have some species that are common in coastal areas, but no inland records at all. So it does make a big difference, this particular way of doing things. The last version we're going to have a look at today is moving away from this species level focus and to give scores to taxonomic groups which are above species level. So currently these records are not included in BioBlitz battles, and about 20% of our current records are recorded above species level. So all of those records are currently not included. So it would be nice to include them. So we're talking about high taxonomic groups. So here's two examples here: sea anemones and red algae. There's a whole hierarchical system of taxonomy above species level. So there are many different groups that you could record to if you weren't sure what species you've got in front of you. So there are good reasons to include the higher taxonomic groups, but there are some complications that we have to deal with. And in order to do that, I'm going to introduce to you my hypothetical rock crawler, Linda here, who's surveying a hypothetical rock pool, a very beautiful rock pool there. And I'm going to demonstrate the difficulty, well, the complication when it comes to calculating Linda's score if you're including these higher taxonomic groups. So let's just say that Linda made 3 records in that rock pool. She recorded a dahlia anemone, and then she made another record, which she wasn't sure what type of anemone it was, so she just called it anemone. And then she also recorded a shore crab. So the dahlia anemone and the shore crab are species level records, but the anemone one is at a higher taxonomic level. So you might think that her total score would be 4. So dahlia is worth 2, the other 2 records are worth 1. Add them together, and that gives you a total of 4. However, there's some double counting going on here, and we need to avoid that. And we can do that by discounting, in this case, the anemone record, because that's already been covered by her dahlia anemone. So dahlia anemone is an anemone, and so you're effectively counting anemones twice when you count her anemone records. So the correct score for Linda is 3. Now, if she hadn't have made that dahlia anemone record, then her score would have been 2, because you could include that anemone score as well as the shore crab score. So it's just a little bit trickier when it comes to putting the score together, and some people might question it when they see their records written down, and their total score isn't the total of all of them, but that would be the reason why. But it's something that can be dealt with in our app to calculate the scores correctly. So it's not a big problem, really. So how much difference does all this stuff make? Well, to have a look at that, I decided to target a particular event that we had. So this was our event in November at Castle Beach in Falmouth, and think about how it would affect the leaderboard on that particular day. Here is the leaderboard from the day. It's actually a bit different from the one that was published after the event, because we picked up something which was incorrectly identified after that, unfortunately. But this is the event as I talked. These are the results as I talked to you today, and we have Jane the wave catcher. Well done, Jane, who came out on top. And this is the top 5, and this is using our existing scoring system. So if we have a look using the simple revision of that scoring system, which we've just done, there's very little difference. I think the scores have gone down slightly, but in terms of the position, it's the same top 5, so they are in the same order. So it doesn't make a great deal of difference. If we use the coastal version, then it does make a difference. You can see that Jane the wave catcher is still number 1, so she'll be happy. But so Dr. Sarah Charles is now joint second with the other 3. So we've got a tie, a 4-way tie for second place. And the reason for that is that Dr. Sarah Charles, she had over half of her species records were above 1 point in the UK-wide version, but nearly all of them. She had 22 species, 19 of them were 1 pointer species when it was changed to the marine-focused coastal version. And the basically says that for her records, they might have been rare on a UK-wide basis, but not necessarily rare from a marine point of view. So that's the reason for that change. Now, when we look at the all-taxa version, including higher taxonomic groups, then we do see the biggest change. And first of all, the scores are a lot higher. The reason for that is because higher taxa records are now included, and species level records, as a result, score more highly. So the scores are higher, but it's not just that everybody's score has got higher, it's changed the placements of a few people, and in particular Apricot Leaf, who's come out of nowhere to take third place using this system. And Apricot Leaf has 7 records that were not at species level, and now Apricot Leaf gets points for them where they didn't get any points for them before. And this is really quite a good thing, because there are some records, and this is an example here, which really it's not okay to record them to species level, because it's pretty much impossible, or it is impossible to work out exactly what species they are in the field. Sometimes you have to get them into a lab and dissect them and stuff like that, which is the case with this flat periwinkle. And you can see that on iNaturalist, one of our volunteers, Izzy, has actually, instead of agreeing it was a flat periwinkle, has actually downgraded the record to Littorina, which is good. And now, as we stood, that meant that Apricot Leaf didn't get a score here, but under the new system they would. Another example here is limpets. So in this case, Apricot Leaf recorded it correctly, and didn't put the exact species, because it's very difficult for these. There's 3 species that look almost identical when they're stuck on a rock like that. In order to ID them, you've really got to rip them off the rock and have a look underneath them. And when you do that, you can kill them. So we don't recommend people do that. And it's a bit of a shame for people, because they can't get any scores under the current system. Under this system, they can. And both Apricot Leaf and Izzy recorded it correctly as patella limpets in the genus Patella. Yeah, that looks like a positive introduction. There is one more potential issue, and I mentioned that there are a couple of issues when I said before. So the system at the moment is everybody's final scores are based on research grade records, and research grade means that the iNaturalist community have agreed sufficiently with the identification that it gets the badge of research grade. And it's very difficult for anything that's not species level to be considered research grade. So the way around this is by using the community taxon. So if you have a look on any iNaturalist record, you'll see the community taxon, and this is the higher taxonomic group. Well, not always high. It's the identification that the community are in agreement with. So we can use that instead of using research grade as our filter. And you can see here that this is a community taxon for one of the records that we were talking about earlier. So it'll have at the top the identification that was made by the original person, but here's the agreement, and it's genus Littorina, so that's what we'll use to allocate the scores. And you can actually get these records to research grade. It's not that they have to be at species level to be research grade. If you get a record like this and you click at the very bottom of the record, is it as good as it can be when it's been identified to that level, then it can actually get to research grade. And that's quite important, because it's only the research grade ones that get passed out of iNaturalist onto big data sharing platforms like the National Biodiversity Network, or GBIF, the international version of that. And so we might want to introduce a system where we give people a bonus point if it gets to research grade. At the moment, we're encouraging people to do that, and we'll be moving away from it unless we do that. and that's what's happened in this example here. So this is not a species level record, but it's been recorded correctly by the community. I think originally it was recorded as flat periwinkle again, but a lot of people have classified it as littorina. People have clicked on that click, and that means that the research grade status has come up, and that means it will get passed onto the data sharing platforms. So yeah, I think there's going to involve a bit of development on the app to accommodate all this kind of stuff, but I think that it can be done, and it would be my recommendation to bring it in. But I'd be very pleased to know your thoughts there, the three different versions, the three options we have going forward. So yeah, if you've got any thoughts, please do stick your comments in the comment section below the video, and I shall be picking them up. Thanks very much for listening.